Alright, I'll admit it, things can get pretty dry out here, even for a VR enthusiast like myself. You see, it's already pretty hard to get into VR, but it's surprisingly also hard to stay into VR. No, not stay in VR, like just keep the headset on, I mean stay invested, stay interested, passionate. You think it'd be easy to stay excited about such a cool emerging technology, but the retention statistics say otherwise. Between the platform-exclusive games limiting what you can play, constant software updates that sometimes cause more problems than they fix, or one of your favorite games shutting down support entirely, it feels like every day it gets harder and harder to find a good reason to be into VR. But luckily, you clicked on a Virtual Bro video. So whether you're brand new to VR and looking for a place to start, or you've got a dusty headset sitting on your shelf already, this is your guide to surviving and thriving in virtual reality this year. Welcome to... Now, when jumping headfirst into the deep rabbit hole that is VR, the hardest and most important choice you'll make is picking the right headset. It can be overwhelming just looking at all the options with all the specs, like the screen resolution, the lens type, field of view, refresh rate compatibility, and so on and so forth.
In English, goddammit!
But I actually, surprisingly, barely care about all that technical stuff. To me, it's much more important to know what your headset can actually do. You see, buying a VR headset is actually a lot more like picking a character or class in a video game. Each one has different strengths and weaknesses that will dictate what it's best at and how it should be played, so really, all you have to do is figure out what your preferred playstyle is. In other words,
choose your character. Player 1. Player 2. Player 3.
For an all-in-one, simple-to-set-up VR solution, the Quest 3 is a perfect entry ticket into VR with no strings attached. Literally.
There are no strings on me.
The completely wireless nature of standalone VR means that this headset is better than any other at giving you unrestricted movement in virtual space, allowing you to spin in circles or take advantage of a full room to walk around, all without worrying about tripping over a cable. This is perfect for highly active games where you need a lot of space to swing your arms and turn around, games like Blade and Sorcery, Beat Saber, Fit XR, but the Quest 3 does more than just VR. It also excels at MR, or mixed reality. There are tons of more relaxed, seated games that take advantage of this, allowing you to play virtual board games or strategy games in your real-life environment. This is a great option if you're very prone to getting motion sickness, or if you just get tired of moving around. Plus, if you ever decide you want to upgrade to PC VR, all you have to do is get the PC part, because your Quest can work as a PC VR headset just by using a USB-C cable. And perhaps most importantly, the Quest probably has the most consistent stream of new games releasing. Tons of them are free-to-play games or have free demos or beta periods, which makes this platform one of the most affordable ways to figure out what kind of VR games you actually enjoy. However, there is a trade-off to the expansive and relatively cheap games library. The general lack of AAA priced games also kind of accounts for the general lack of AAA quality. There are a few exceptions like Batman Arkham Shadow, Assassin's Creed Nexus, but most of these games are mid to low budget indie titles, so just set your expectations accordingly. But on the other hand, if you are specifically looking for those AAA quality VR experiences, I might have just the thing. Armed with full-size AAA exclusives like Resident Evil, Hitman, and Gran Turismo, the PSVR 2 is the best accessory I've ever gotten for a video game console, followed closely by the Logitech G29 steering wheel that it convinced me to buy soon after. Seriously, the PSVR 2 is the gateway drug of VR.
What do you want more than anything else in the entire world?
Okay, what do I want more than anything else in this entire world?
Yes.
Oh!
I don't even like racing simulator games normally, but playing one on the PSVR 2 was so dang immersive that I just had to get a full racing wheel, pedals, and everything. I do not normally like horror games, but after trying Resident Evil 4 in VR, I immediately bought Resident Evil Village because I craved more of that intense, immersive action with truly lifelike graphics. Another example, I used to reinstall the flat screen version of No Man's Sky every once in a while, but after playing it in VR, I no longer do that, because now it never leaves my console. Anytime I feel like flying a spaceship, or becoming a stealthy assassin, or saving the president's daughter, the PSVR 2 is my go-to option. While only offering a fraction of the number of games as the Quest 3, the general quality and length of these games is much more likely to keep you invested and coming back. Oh, and similar to the Quest 3, the PSVR 2 also gives you room to grow, since all you need to upgrade to PC VR is, well, the PC itself and this little adapter. But if you are going to get into PC VR, it might be worth it to fully commit with something like the This is the most recent headset I've had the pleasure of using and is actually what inspired me to make this video in the first place, because this is an incredible headset in the right hands. This is for the VR connoisseur. It provides some of the sharpest visuals I've ever seen, but at a much higher cost and much higher skill requirement than the other two headsets. This headset really shines when paired with flight simulators, racing sims, and other high-fidelity seated VR experiences like modded flat-screen games. Having an insanely sharp VR headset means you can finally appreciate those games' details to their fullest. In fact, the Pimax can be so crystal clear that the only limiting factor to your visual immersion often becomes the game's own graphics, or your graphics card. Now, I mentioned the Crystal Light has a high skill requirement, but it's not necessarily difficult to first set up. You basically just plug in the power cable, DisplayPort, and USB, and then download the Pimax Play app and launch Steam VR from there. That's all there is to it to initially get started with the Crystal Light, but to get the optimal clarity and performance out of it, you're gonna want to mess with all the foveated render settings, the IPD measurements and offset, the refresh rates, and a few other things just to get everything dialed in perfectly. This is what I mean when I say it has a high skill requirement. It's completely up to you to troubleshoot and figure out anything that might be wrong. Coming from just standalone VR or even PSVR to this is like being thrown into the manual transmission of a car after driving automatic your whole life.
I don't know what any of this shit is and I'm fucking scared.
But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. Quite the opposite, in fact. It's that more manual, flexible nature of PCVR that allows you to play some of the most incredible VR experiences ever.
Computer, generate launcher and a set of goggles. Disengage safety protocols and run program.
Before we move on, I should clarify that these are the 3 headsets I've used and can recommend, but there are others out there that might be worth considering, especially if you have the budget. For example, I've heard amazing things about the new Big Screen Beyond 2, but that is entering an entirely different price range since it costs $1,000 just for the headset, but also requires base stations for tracking, $120 custom-made face cushions, and I'm not even sure it comes with controllers. There is also the Pimax Crystal Super with an 8K micro OLED display, which I do really hope to try one day, but it's like I said earlier, picking a VR headset isn't about the best specs or what's meta, it's about choosing the character that fits your playstyle. But what if you don't know what your preferred playstyle is? Or what if you thought you did, but you still ended up getting bored of VR? Well, so in 2025, what VR games are actually worth playing? Pfft, I'm not gonna tell you. No, really, I'm not.
You serious?
It would be a waste of time for me to just list off the best games on each platform because that list is constantly changing. New games are constantly releasing, old games are constantly disappearing.
Am I right, ladies?
And what makes a great VR game kind of depends on your taste. But what makes a bad VR game is one that ruins your desire to put on the headset again, and we don't want that to happen. So, one of the keys to keeping your passion for VR alive is knowing how to find worthwhile experiences. So here are 3 tips to get good at getting good games. Number 1, don't fall for VR trailers. I can't remember the last time a VR trailer actually convinced me to buy a game. They are often full of pre-rendered graphics that don't show actual gameplay or use different camera angles or editing tricks to make the game seem more exciting than it is. The worst kind of trailers are the ones where all they do is quote positive things people have said about the game completely out of context. In general, trailers are terrible at showing you what it's actually like to play a VR game, so anytime I see one that actually does pique my interest, the first thing I do is go look up raw gameplay or a trusted content creator's first impressions. The VR creators that I personally watch all the time are Beardo Benjo for PCVR, Gamertag for Quest, and Jammy Hero for PSVR 2. These channels are great resources for keeping up to date on VR news, sales, and upcoming game releases, and they all post really frequently. Way more often than me, that's for sure.
Ooh, self-burn. Those are rare.
But what if you aren't interested in any of the games currently or soon to be releasing? Well, that actually leads me to tip number 2. It's a fact that VR gaming goes through droughts. There are often long stretches of time where it seems like nothing interesting is being released or even announced in the VR space. So how do you keep your passion for this hobby alive during these times? Well, first, let me say there's nothing wrong with taking a break from VR. In fact, it can be pretty nice to switch to another hobby or only playing flat screen games for a while because often it makes getting back into VR even even cooler. Sometimes I'll even play a flat screen game and think, I wonder if there's anything like this but in VR, and that sends me on a virtual scavenger hunt to find exactly that. So if you've ever been obsessed with a certain flat screen game, I recommend using that as inspiration to seek out a VR game that feels similar, because chances are somebody has already made a VR version of it. And even if there isn't a direct VR counterpart, if a game seems like it would be a great fit for VR, there's a high chance someone has already made a mod for it, which ties directly into tip number 3. Sometimes the best VR games aren't even VR games. I'm not sure what this says about the current state of VR, but sometimes games that were never designed to be played in VR end up being the best use for it. Just watch my video on how Cyberpunk 2077 is actually my favorite VR game, despite not technically being one. So if you do manage to get into PC VR, I highly suggest checking out flat screen to VR mods if the standard VR games aren't living up to your expectations. The mods I specifically have used and would recommend are Luke Ross's Real VR mod, which you can get for $10 on his Patreon, or Praydog's Unreal Engine VR Injector mod, which is free on GitHub. While mods like these do take some effort to set up and get working properly, it is absolutely worth it to get to experience one of your favorite games in this new immersive way. Or even to experience something that VR studios just simply don't have the budget to pull off quite yet. Something like GTA 5 in VR, absolutely incredible, but there's not going to be a VR exclusive game like it for another 10 years probably. It's like I've been saying for months now, VR is best not when it's in direct competition with traditional games, but when it's used as a natural extension of them, like a portal into them. Speaking of portals, it kind of sounds like a magic portal is opening up. What the? Are these accessories? As you can see, there is an abysmal amount of VR gadgets and accessories out there, and don't get me wrong, I swear by some of these. Like this Kiwi design battery head strap never comes off my Quest 3. It is just too essential. But there are a lot of accessories out there that are a bit less essential. Like, do I really need to be able to smell my VR games? On second thought, I'll take 2. But seriously, some of the headsets I've told you about have some major flaws that can be easily fixed with a few relatively cheap accessories. I'll list off which ones you absolutely need up front and suggest a few you might be interested in later down the line. Starting with the Quest 3 accessories you need, number 1, a full head strap. The default head strap is terrible, anyone will tell you this. My favorite brand of head straps is personally Kiwi design, but a lot of people like Bobo VR. Either way, I will say one with a battery is definitely recommended because this is a standalone headset, so it means you're not plugged into power, and if you're playing a high intensity game, that battery can drain pretty quickly. Number 2 is a facial interface replacement for easier cleaning, less sweating, and less irritation. The default Quest 3 face cushion for some reason irritates my skin, so I always like to get the pleather ones that you can wipe down way more easily. They also make some that have a built-in fan if you happen to sweat in VR or if you plan to do VR workouts. I mentioned this in my FitXR video recently. These things are actually a game changer. And lastly, if you need glasses to see clearly, custom prescription lens inserts are definitely worth it. I personally have used the brand VR Wave in the past, and it's so much better than having to wear your glasses underneath your headset or just having blurred vision the whole time. Highly recommend. Okay, moving on to the Pimax crystal light accessories you absolutely need. Number 1, good wired headphones. Their default audio speakers are so bad they're basically unusable, so you're either going to have to upgrade with their official headphone upgrade or just buy some decent wired earbuds. And similar to the Quest 3, if you need glasses to see clearly, you'll also want to order custom prescription lens inserts because it would be a waste of that headset's high resolution if you couldn't fully appreciate the clarity and sharpness. Moving on to the PlayStation VR 2 accessories you absolutely need, none. Literally, this headset is completely rock solid out of the box and is the only headset that's actually comfortable to wear glasses with. However, if you do want to use this headset with your gaming PC, the only must-have accessory is an adapter. Okay, and finally, this is the category for non-essential but still really cool accessories. These are accessories that might increase your immersion or your fun, but aren't absolutely necessary to the experience. Number 1 is a B-Haptics vest. This is really cool and adds another layer of immersion, but it's not necessarily game-changing. It's not going to give you any real advantage, but this haptic feedback is so cool in games like Blade and Sorcery or first-person shooters where you can feel the recoil in your chest. Speaking of first-person shooters and recoil, getting a gun stock for your controllers is also a really cool thing to do for competitive shooters. I messed around with quite a few of these when I was really into Ghost of Tabor, but I honestly haven't used one in a really long time, so that's why it's on this section of the list. Moving on, another really cool thing, there are these like full-body trackers that you can put on your arms and legs to basically motion capture your avatar. You could buy a physical set of these, or there is a free app on your phone that can actually kind of do this using your camera. Definitely worth checking out. Moving on to also steering wheels. I got the Logitech G29 to work with my PlayStation VR 2, and it was absolutely game-changing to use with Gran Turismo 7. It feels like I'm actually driving those cars. And the fact that I can also use it for any PC VR game makes it a pretty decent investment. My next goal is to get this working in GTA so I can just drive around in VR with a steering wheel. That would be awesome. And I saved the biggest for last, VR treadmills. Most people won't be able to afford these, but they are super cool if you can, especially if you want a cool way to exercise. Although personally, the one I got sent just sits in the corner of my room collecting dust, so your mileage may vary. Of course, there are tons more accessories out there that you might be interested in, but these are just the ones I have experience with that I can give advice on. It's always worth it to look up dedicated reviews before buying something, but hopefully this at least gives you a place to start. Now, before we wrap up this video completely, I do have a few more. Number 1, always be on the lookout for deals and giveaways. So many VR studios and content creators hold VR giveaways because they want to give more people the chance to try VR. For example, there's this super underrated channel called Lunch in VR that does monthly game giveaways, and even I had the chance to hold a Quest 3S giveaway thanks to a recent sponsor, so always keep an eye out for those. Other ways to save money on VR games include the MetaQuest Plus subscription, which is basically like VR Game Pass. It gives you access to a decent library of games for a single monthly price. Really handy if it's your first time in VR and just want to try a bunch of games quickly. Another thing to take advantage of, there are constantly playtests of upcoming games that you can sign up for as a way to try them for free and even help shape their development. I just got done participating in the alpha playtest for Forefront, which is basically Battlefield in VR, and I haven't been this excited about an upcoming VR game in a hot minute. So it's absolutely worth checking out these playtests whenever you hear about them. And finally, a special ongoing deal that I'm really excited to tell you about is Pimax's PC VR upgrade program. This is for anyone who already owns a VR headset but is looking to upgrade. Whether you have a Quest 3, a Valve Index, even a Quest 2, all you have to do is submit proof of purchase of your current headset and Pimax will give you $40 to $60 off their Crystal Light headset. And before I forget, last thing I should mention, VR is more than just games. Whether it's working out with fitness apps, watching 3D movies in virtual theaters, or simply meeting up with a friend to hang out and chat in your virtual home, you might be surprised at what else VR can do besides just gaming. So believe me, I get it. VR can feel like a literal desert sometimes. Games shut down, hardware gets expensive, and some days it just feels easier to leave the headset collecting dust on the shelf. But here's the thing. All it takes is one game, one experience, one moment, or one person to remind you why this hobby is worth it. And my hope is that this video provided at least one of those things. Thank you for watching. If you found this video in some way useful or entertaining, I'd be so thankful if you left a like so that it gets shown to more people who might feel the same way. I'm incredibly proud of this community we've built up here, and I'd love to give more people the opportunity to join. Special thanks to my Patreon members who help fund these videos. Check out the link in the description to learn more. As always, I'm Virtual Bro, and I'm gonna go look for some more VR games to show you. Be back soon.